Hello, everybody, and welcome to Big Brother updates here, live feed updates on Big Brother 28. I think this is the wrong show.
Yeah, you're in the wrong room.
All right, let's
That's
let's
two
change
doors
the
down.
background. Let's change the background. All right, hello, everybody. Welcome to Survivor Character Study. My name is Tristan. That is Tyler. Man, I'm ready to get into this. It is we're talking about a Big Brother house guest, so that's why you saw that earlier. A current somebody who's currently in the Big Brother house right now, one of two from season 50. We're talking about the lovely Dee Valladares, the winner of Survivor 45. Tyler, how are you? You ready
I,
to hop in and talk about one of the best winners of the new era?
I really am. Yeah, Dee's obviously a great player coming back on the CBS shows now for the third time.
Mm-hmm.
So very impressive from her. Yeah, it's good. It's nice timing for us to do this podcast when we officially found out that she was going to be in the Big Brother house. I was even more excited to do this. So let's get rolling.
Yeah, you watching any Big Brother?
I've seen the clips. I saw the
I've
clip with them
I-
and their outfits and stuff like that, but I
I've
haven't
tuned
watched
in. I've tuned
it.
in. Yeah, I saw Rachel Riley get thrown into a volcano, which was
Oh gosh.
an interesting. We'll go with that.
Did not know
This is
about
my
that.
first time of watching Big Brother, to be 100% honest with everybody. But I think Dee is such an interesting character. You know, from her time on Survivor, her two times there, to the challenge, to Big Brother. You know, and through the live feed, right? You can even see that she's kind of running that house with
Yeah.
house guests the same way she's running an island, right? Which I think is a really fascinating way of tracking how she goes. But I think Dee has a ton to her. But if you're asking who we are, we're producers and storytellers that love Survivor and the characters that make the show great. We're doing this show because we want to answer the question of what makes a great Survivor character, and we want you to be a main character. Follow, like, subscribe, do all the things. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, those are our three main social media channels. We also have audio feed on Spotify. If you're taking a road trip, just put it on Spotify. Why not? You know, no need to open up YouTube and have the little video in the corner
You don't need to see us.
of your navigation, right? We got faces for radio anyway. But we're gonna talk about Dee, who is I already said one of the best winners of the new era, but I also think one of the best players of the new era, and somebody who is it might be too early to say this, but I think a bona fide Survivor legend already.
Yeah, I think she'll like regardless of how many times she goes down and plays, like I think to Kim Spradlin, like someone who
Yeah.
hasn't played many times, but like obviously the first time she played, she just gets that automatic legend for being one of the better winners in her era. She's probably one of the better winners of the entire show, as I would throw D up in that category as well. So it's like even if we never see D again on a non-Big Brother or Survivor show after this summer, she's still gonna be someone that people remember.
I think we're gonna see her again. Just based on the fact that she's already done Survivor, she's done Big Brother, she's done the challenge. She kind of seems like she's going to be somebody who's going to be on the forefront of reality TV for a while. I know she's hosting a UFC show on Paramount Plus, like a UFC special. So I think she's locked into that Paramount universe. It's just, do we see her on something like The Traitors? Do we see her on something like um, any other show, you know, going forward in the future? Heck, we could see her on Love Island. You know, maybe. You never know.
She's made a true career for herself outside of Survivor using her CBS connections, but also just in general, she's been able to take the great things she did on the show and make them even greater off of it.
Yeah, she might be the first one of the new era to really establish this, in my opinion. I think that she has been a huge get for Survivor in the reality TV world in general, and I don't see this stopping anytime soon.
Yeah, and I think we could start to get into really why that comes
Yeah,
from.
let's do it.
So obviously, she dominates her season, but she's not alone in that. She does have a
No.
good group of people to do that. So it starts off early on, just to recap for those who are not as aware, don't remember Dee's first season, season 45 as well. Um, we will be here to recap and talk about it for you. But
Yeah.
she starts the season and she builds a strong connection with Julie, Mama Julia, she's called
Hmm.
by the others on the tribe, and she calls herself that as well. But Dee builds that connection with her early on, and then there's a separate group of two that is building a strong connection, and that's really where they need to try and figure out how they can get into there. So then that kind of goes into everything that goes on later on in the season. But first off, before we get to the Drew and Austin side of it, I
Hmm.
want to talk about the Julie and Dee side of it.
Yeah, let's do it. Well, I think something that comes up with Julie is the fact that Dee recognizes how important Julie is in that group. I think more than anyone else in that alliance, right? A lot of times these mother figures, right, are almost left out of things because they don't feel like they'd be up enough or hip enough or whatever the excuse might be, right? But I think Dee realizes how important it is to have Julie there. Um, and Julie's a great player in her own right. She's good in challenges. She's somebody who knows the game. She's somebody who is socially really good. And I think Dee recognizes those strengths. And something that Dee does is really surround herself with a bunch of really strong players. It's almost the meat shield strategy that Jeremy uses in Cambodia
Mhm.
to a certain extent. But this is really the first alliance that we've seen like run a game in a long time. At least in recent memory up to that point in Survivor. It was a very individual game. You know, you had the Marianne strategy of being like sixth in the final eight, you know, in the pecking
Mhm.
order, right? And you see Erica and Marianne and Gabler, right? Some of those players that are wolves in sheep's clothing. And Dee is very like, hey, nope, I'm the wolf. I'm here. But I also have a pack of wolves with me, right? That's going to go out and try to take over this game. And I really think that this is almost a back to basics seasons in a lot of ways, and you can see that in the way the new era goes after season 45.
Yeah, just to keep going with that analogy too, something that Dee does very well throughout the game is pick out the runts in the wolf pack as well,
Mm.
especially when it comes to the original Reba tribe. Um, they're willing to throw players like Sifu and Jeremiah under the bus in order to move themselves further. So you can be a wolf and be shown as a wolf in this game as long as you have those runs in front of you that you can get out and convince people to take out.
Well, and I think that the Sifu vote is really interesting. So at the tribe
Who voted
swap, right?
Sifu?
Yeah, well, at the tribe swap, you know, they're basically Reba stays together. It's Austin and Drew that go off, and then you add in Sean into that group, and really what happens is Sean wants to quit, right, at Tribal. Dee decides she's still going to write down Sifu's name. Um, and that causes Sifu to question who voted Sifu. And for some reason, Jeremiah falls on the sword, still inexplicable to this day. And Sifu wanted to vote D at Caleb's shot in the Dark Tribal Council. If that happens, D goes home, not Jay, which is a
Hmm.
really fascinating uh, line of thinking there. Just because, I mean, what happens, right? This really presented an unnecessary risk for D, and we can talk about D's Survivor 45 Survivor 45 game in terms of how great it is until the cows come home. But there are some flaws that are mainly self-inflicted that she has throughout the game.
Do we want to save those for later or get to them now?
I'm fine to go whatever. We can just give the spark notes of what
Okay.
happens in 45 too. I
Yeah,
mean,
let's
she
pick up on
spends
the
she spends
Austin.
$900 at a
Yep.
milkshake
Hmm.
at the auction, which is just a fun character moment there. This was when the auction, like if you had the most amount of money, you lose your vote. So D decided, hey, I'm just going for it, which is kind of D as a player in a
Also
nutshell.
led that movement. Then everyone else started kind of doing that as well. So
Yeah, poor Bruce.
yeah, poor guy.
Yeah, you want to pick up with Austin?
Yeah, we'll get into Austin specifically as we move through it, but just early in the game, I mentioned it earlier, but there was those two duos, Julie and Dee, and then Drew and Austin were another duo, and they were kind of working together. Dee even describes that as to be the case, where in the beginning they were all coalescing in some way, but they definitely had their subgroups. They knew, or Dee picked up on the fact that rightfully that they were hiding something from them, meaning Austin and Drew were. Ultimately, they end up telling Julie and Dee about it because they get caught in the act of everything that was going on.
With the
And
amulet, yeah.
yes, with the amulet, which turns into the whole thing throughout the rest of the season as well.
The
Um,
sandwich.
yes, the sandwich. But then they become a four. The two and the two become a four, but there's also more to it. Inside the four, there are two twos, and there's a three. And that three is Dee's two number ones, which is vastly important throughout the entirety of the game. She mentions it many times because it is the reason she really goes far in this game. She has what you mentioned, those people in her pack that can lead the Wolves to the finish line. She has Austin as a number one, and she has Julie as a number one. Both think they're their number one, that they're her number one. And they probably know the other one's close with her, but they don't care because they're her number one. That is key social strategy by Dee. It's one of the best and most important parts of her entire game, and really, I think the reason why she gets there.
Well, and this is also a great contradiction into what we see later in the new era and even earlier in the new era, right? In the big moves era that is kind of kicked off with Tony in Kagayan, it's take your ally as far as you can go, then cut him as your big move that puts you into the end, right?
Hmm.
D goes almost exactly against this. Her ideal final three is with Julie and Austin. I mean, you get to the final five when Julie goes out. D doesn't vote for Julie, right?
Hmm.
Takes Austin to the end. And that's a close vote, right? So, I mean, these are two things that are just, Dee is kind of just a unique player because she kind of takes the meta that's written into the show and flips it on its head, which I think is a really interesting part about how she plays this game. But really, this is the first introduction of the two number ones. And I think this is what makes Dee so dangerous. We think of her as a great challenge performer. We think of her as a great strategist, but really her social game is one of her strengths. And I don't think that's shown very much. And I don't think that's highly recognized.
And with that comes her confidence as well. She knows what she's capable of. She knows that exactly what she's doing, that she can not necessarily manipulate those two socially, but she can manipulate others socially and build true and also game connections with those two in order to move herself further into the game. Yeah, she carries that confidence throughout the whole time, but she also, what brings her with that confidence is she knows that she has something on both Julie and Austin. And I think it actually comes in the same vote. I think it's the most important vote of all of season 45.
It's
It's the
that final
vote,
six vote. Yeah.
yeah, where Julie plays her idol. But Dee tells Julie, hey, you need to play your idol. I'm also going to be voting for you. All the votes are going on you. You need to vote Emily. Emily ultimately does go home after Julie plays the idol. With that, not only is that a secret she's keeping from Austin, but that's something that she could say if they were all in the final tribal together, theoretically, if it was Julie, Austin, and Dee. Julie, I told you this. I had the information, you didn't. This was the game I needed you to play in order for us to get further in the game. And that's why you're still here because you were a part of my plan. And she knows that she did that and she has the confidence to go forth with that, even if it means she has less of a chance if she went against two goats at the end.
Yeah, it's very puppet mastery from D, you know?
Yes.
And that's really what D's strength is here. I want to dive into this vote because I think this is a really fascinating vote. The final six vote and the final five vote here are really fascinating.
Yes.
Um, so let's get into the final six, right? You laid out the scenario, right? Everyone's gunning for Julie, specifically Austin and Drew. Austin makes the fatal mistake of telling D this plan. Then, because he's blinded by I mean, he's got goo-goo eyes for D at this point, right?
She kind
And
of does for him, but not really.
yeah, and
So,
I could, when the season was airing, I think we all thought it was a little bit more legit, right? And now that
hmm.
we know that things are different and things have worked out, right? It's not quite the same, right?
Yeah.
But so that's probably a little bit of hindsight there. Um, but let's talk about so Emily, right, is the target that um, Dee and Julie recognize because they know Austin and Drew are really close with Julie. So they lead this charge to take out Emily in just beautiful, beautiful lockstep here, right?
Yeah.
This is actually the final seven vote. My apologies. Final six is where Drew goes out.
Yes. Yep.
Another stroke of genius from Dee, where she uh, hides the Drew vote from Austin and calls Austin to misplay his idol. So really great move from Dee there. But in the final seven, this is where um, Dee votes for Julie to keep her cover intact, tells Julie to play her idol. There's one vote in the entire tribal, and that's against Emily, sends Emily packing, and sets up Dee to then pull the wool over Austin's eyes once again and say, hey, I don't know what happened. She must have just gotten spooked, right? Which I'm not
Hmm.
so sure is just a good lie or if he was just really into her,
Yeah.
but you never know.
Well, you could argue both to be the
Yeah.
case, and that's because like she's authentic in her relationship with Austin throughout the
Hmm.
whole game. But she also knows, and she says this explicitly, I came onto the show, and one of my number one things was no showmances. And one of my number one things that I knew I would struggle with is controlling my emotions. And that's what makes great survivor characters and great players, is that you can have your emotions, but you need to understand when you need to harness them and when you need to let them out. She's a master at knowing when it is time to let her emotions go to try and get some reaction or to try and push her agenda, and when it's time to stay back, push her emotions down, and make the move that she just needs to make, regardless of what her emotions think. And yeah, that just goes to show the person and character she is, that she is smart and that she's a game player beyond all, and that she knows that likely they will be able to forgive each other after this game, even if they make dirty moves in the game called Survivor.
Yeah. I mean, Dee's also not a stranger to a showmance. In other shows, right? We
No,
see this. But uh, the final five vote is another really interesting vote this season because really, if the plan goes the way it should, Dee's gone, right? But it
hmm
all works just perfectly where Katura doesn't trust Jake. Jake doesn't fully tell her the plan, but then Julie goes out 2-1-1-0 and just a crazy vote.
it is a
Uh,
wild vote.
I mean, it's insane. Like, legitimately one of the craziest votes of the new era. There are a lot of that here. You get the Caleb shot in the dark play. You get the Emily one vote boot, right? You get the Sabaya thing in the
Yeah,
pre-merge, right? Like,
the
there was a lot of
handle.
crazy moves that happen here.
Hmm
Uh, but really, like, at the final five, this is like the one concrete hole in D's game that you can find, if you're going to find
Yeah,
one. But to a certain extent, every player has these moves that, like, hey, if I would have taken them out then, things change. Something tells me that if Rick Devens and Christian knew that Aubrey were going to go on to win season 50, they would have cut her at the Blood Moon.
yeah.
You
You know,
know, like,
it's impressive that it takes all the way to five in order for that to be the case.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So far into the game where now there's so few votes, every vote matters more, obviously, just based on the numbers there. But yeah, it's one conversation between Jake and Katora where they just can't get on the same page. But to defend Dee a little bit here in this vote, even though I do think she was the person that should have gone home, obviously in hindsight. But even at the
Mhm.
time, it seemed like Jake knew that. It seemed like others on the island knew how big of a threat Dee was. But her connection with Katora was real. She did have the Re Before alliance, but she also spent time connecting with Katora, especially when they were going after Drew and other votes as well, in order to have her maybe be just a little bit hesitant to make that move against her in the end. And that's what saves her.
Yeah. Another moment of Dee's social game really coming in clutch. Well, she
Hmm
dominates the Final Four immunity challenge, the one that Jake breaks. Uh, she takes Austin to the end. Jake and Katura go into Final Four fire making. Jake finally gets his win on the season. He finally kicks the football.
hmm
Uh, that's a Charlie Brown reference because usually
I
the
gotcha.
final. Okay. Just wanted to explain for
I
the
was
people
following.
that might not fully understand. Um, And I'm just gonna say something. I don't think this is the greatest final tribal performance in the world from Dee. But
She gets what
she
she
has
needed to
one of
get
the
right, right.
yeah, I was gonna say she has maybe the best moment at a final tribal council in the new era here, where she just dunks on Austin.
Yes. But she dunks on him in a respectful way. She looks
Yeah.
to him and she says, I'm sorry, Austin, I didn't tell you this, but this is what happened. It wasn't gloating, it wasn't bragging, it was saying, here's what I did, and here's why I did it, and here's why I didn't tell you, and here's why I brought you to the end with me. Rather than saying, look how good of a player I am. She's just describing her game in a calm and meaningful manner.
Yeah. Well, and the reason that it's not the great tribal performance is I just don't think there are some answers there that are as good as maybe Jake or Austin's. Austin
Yeah.
has a good final tribal, all
Hmm.
things considered, and then she kind of pokes the bear with Bruce, and that's something that depending on what a juror has for lunch, maybe that shifts, right?
Hmm.
So that's just something there. But overall, Dee's a fantastic player. Season 45 is a great season. Uh, Dee does a really masterful job in season 45. And she keeps her promise to Emily in Emily's voting confessional. She said, you better not spend $1 on that boy. And I don't think she did. But Dee wins 5-3-0, and that went pretty close vote. Pretty close
Yeah.
vote.
Yeah, kind of tying it back to what's behind me. Not we didn't mention the big toe of it all, but
Hmm.
it seems like a weird time for me to bring it up after we're talking about her winning. But I promise it'll relate in a second. There's a segment early on in the season where they talk about how big Dee's toes are and how it could help her win a challenge. Ultimately, she does win a challenge, but she has
She
that
wins a
big toe.
bunch.
She does, yes, but she wins one, the Get a Grip challenge because of her big toe, in parts. Um, but then, like, she goes on and that kind of describes who she is. Like, she has the energy, like the big toe energy as she describes it, but sometimes she can maintain it, like we've talked about, and sometimes she lets it out. And that's who Dee is as a player. Have that energy, but to not necessarily need it. You can keep your sock on, but sometimes you gotta take it off. No, not,
Sure.
not my best analogy there.
Nope. Sure. We'll go with that. Well,
Sounded like
is there any
Stephen
more?
Rams analogies on
Yeah.
49. I
Are,
love Stephen, but his analogies are up.
you want a kangaroo metaphor?
Yeah.
Um, so are we thinking that we go to 50, or is there anything more to talk about
I'm ready to
in
go to
45
50. Yeah.
here?
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk about Dee's mindset going into season 50, because something we
Hmm.
talked about is you just talked about big toe energy and the socks and all that stuff. Now, I do want to bring up something because in her season 50 preseason quote, I'm going to say that something that she's bringing into season 50 is just this attitude of go big or go home. Like that's
Hmm.
very much a D mindset. And she says before the game, people say I'm cutthroat and the most dominant winner in the new era, which makes me laugh sometimes because I think I could have been more ruthless, actually. The thing is, you see me from a screen, but when you meet me, I'm kind and I make sure everyone's comfortable. Again, to our
Hmm.
point on social game there. She says, quote, I'm going to use my charisma and easygoingness to make sure it's anyone but me. Either way, I don't care about reputation. I care about results.
Yeah.
I think that sums up Dee pretty well as a character and how she operates in season 50 as well. Because I think both you and I thought she was dead on arrival as soon as she got on that island.
I actually had her going far. I think I had to look, but I think I predict her getting like sixth place or something like that.
Ooh.
Because I knew that she would have social bonds, and if she could get past the first couple of votes, that she would be okay. And I think she plays probably as good as she could play considering the circumstances
Yeah.
with the game that she's going to. Because yeah, she goes in with that mentality in 50. She also goes in with that same mentality in 45. It's why she wins the season, you know? And it helps if you're on a season where you're one of the three people who have $1 million to your name already to just
Yeah.
say, screw it, I'm going to go and play hard and have some fun and see what I can do. And that's what she does throughout 50. So good on her.
Yeah, well, and something you see in season 50 that you don't see in 45 is that in season 50, she's playing from the bottom most of
Yeah.
the time in the game,
Mhm.
especially after the first tribe swap. But let's start on original Kahlo, right?
Mhm.
She's with Tiffany and Camilla, she forms that bond. Targets Chrissy. Something interesting I want to note though is that she works with Julie in 45,
Yeah.
but targets Chrissy in 50, two players in the similar archetype.
Yeah, I think the similar archetype, you can look at the mom archetype of it all, but they are two very different players.
Oh,
Um,
very true.
yeah, like Julie is more of like the character who would embrace the Mama Julie of it all.
Yeah.
Chrissy would not want to be called Mama Chrissy.
Nope.
So stay tuned later on this week. We'll have a podcast
Hmm.
talking all about Chrissy and kind of what that entails on 50 and in HHH. But yeah, getting back to D, it is a difference of strategy that becomes important. She finds the people on her tribe that she knows she's similar to. In a lot of ways, she was similar to Julie on 45, despite the age gap, and in even more ways, she's similar to players like Camilla and Tiffany on this season, season 50.
Well, something about Suri that is talked about, right? As soon as that tribe swap happens, uh, she wants
Yeah.
to target Suri. Her friend Mel says, "Hey, target Suri." Mel at this point, I think maybe has more screen time than Tiffany in the edit.
Yeah.
But then Suri wins her over, as Suri does.
Hmm.
I'm so excited to talk about Suri when we get to it. Just a side
Getting
note.
closer.
Um, but I want to talk about something that I don't think a lot of people are going to want us to talk about. But I think it's particularly interesting, especially with D. I think D is the best part of the Zach Brown reward. And she
Yeah.
doesn't even go on the reward.
I think she's my second favorite part about that reward, and I'll tell you what my first is later. But continue.
I mean, she's very emotionally moved, not even by the fact that he's going to be playing. She's moved by his presence and is devastated when she doesn't win that reward with her tribe.
Hmm.
All I'm saying is this should be the pitch to Survivor. Bring back rewards with unique experiences in them. Like it leads to conflict and emotion. If you want a
Yeah.
better show, you always ask, worth playing for. If it's not going to create those conflicts and emotions, like if it's just eating lasagna in the sanctuary, I'm sorry, that's not moving the needle. That's not going to make somebody want to target somebody because of that. I mean, that's making the reward choice basically just a throw in, right? It's
Yeah.
making those interpersonal conflicts that this game is so famous for and known for really watered down. So a lot of what I say, and I'm not trying to be like new era sucks kind of person because generally I'm pretty positive on the show, but really bring back some of those big rewards. Like, and ironically, you see it in Dee's first season with the helicopter. Like that's a big thing.
Hmm.
The family letters is always one. Why? Because that is a unique experience.
Right. Yeah,
If you
truly.
bring back some unique experiences, you're in Fiji of all places. Look, I know that Fiji, you're there every season, right? And you can't do as many things as you could if you were moving locations. But I promise you, there are things you can do in Fiji that are unique experiences.
Yeah, you said it at the top there. That's exactly it. Jeff asks, worth playing for? That's something production needs to ask themselves. Is this something, if I was a
Hmm.
player, would be worth playing for and would be something that might be worth making me get emotional and lose sight of the game if I don't get it? Because that's what makes moments on the show.
See Applebee's, right?
Yeah.
Literally the next season with Liz, right? And that's a specific circumstance.
Yeah, they kind of get lucky there.
That's at the sanctuary, and that's with a restaurant that she just so happens to have a huge relationship with her daughter, right? So that's all happenstance there. But you see my point, right? If you
Hmm.
get rewards that would be for anybody, like that would be cool. I mean, who would it be for you? Like if they were to bring somebody, you get a lunch or a dinner with this person on Survivor, and it would be something that would get you as emotional as D if you didn't get it. What would it be for you? I don't know if I have one.
There's definitely things. I'm just thinking off the top of my brain. I think like in general, like the musical experiences
Yeah.
are are like as much as we could complain about how long the musical experience went for us. Like that is special. Like going to a concert in general is
Yeah.
just cool to see some of your favorite artists. Even if you don't love them, to see someone performing live who you might know one or two songs from. Like that is a intimate, close experience that you have on a show that you love. That I think could really, really make an impact. I think there's other things they could do with celebrities as well, but I think the music side of it would probably bring like it's the most natural. Like you wouldn't want to bring like an actor out and be like, here's your meet and greet. Like you get to shake their hand and eat a fish with Timothy Chalamet or something, like. Um, but yeah, I think there's plenty of things like Loved Ones Visit was obviously a huge one, a
Hmm.
staple of the show for so long, that's kind of faded away. Um, and yeah, things like that just bring the emotion out of it and can make you lose sight of the game. Like I said, I think is important.
Like, and if we're talking about Survivor doing all these things for Fiji, I know they get a tax break there. I know it helps Fiji's local economy. Like, why aren't we doing more things into villages and
Yeah.
underfunded areas, right? Which used to be a hugely important part of early seasons. I mean, heck, it's launched Ethan Zahn's life, like
hmm
all these things. Like, I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, but
Yeah, I think the players bring a lot of their lives with them onto Survivor. Survivor needs to bring some of their lives in with the players,
yeah.
things they recognize from home, whether it be family, artist, whatever it may be. They're, like a specific, if they know they love this meal, something like that. Like try and bring that to them so that they can have those more raw reactions.
And we get less sexy Jeff voice. So all it's a win-win.
Yeah.
Let's move on from this. If you're ready to move on from the Zach Brown of it all. I don't want to go like
Yeah.
a full
Well,
Zach
just I
Brad.
said I would mention it. Colby
Oh,
was my favorite part of the
okay.
the there. I think him being on that experience and having the moment of saying, if this is my last day here, this was all worth it. I think that ties into the conversation we're having, that it is really worth playing for, and it is just more than a game in that moment.
He's also the best confessionalist in that group. So that's
hmm
helpful there. Um, All right, so let's get back to the game, right? She's working with Rizzo, Charlie, or Rizzo, Camilla, and Suri to blindside Charlie, and calls Charlie the dumbest player here, which is something you don't expect to hear from two people that are friends, or at least were, outside of the game, which is a very fascinating thing. And Camilla shares this sentiment as well, and just calling Charlie too slow as a player, which is something I find really, really interesting because Charlie's known as this like great strategic player, like that's his calling card, right? And to have these players say he's too slow, like is that just our edited view of Charlie, or is that actually something that's just a matter of perspective based on being on the island and if you're working with Charlie or not? But this is really, I think, where the turn flips for D.
It is. And I think part of it is the edited show kind of pushing Charlie down a little bit, but there's definitely some truth to it as well. That Camilla and Dee are both players that are just going to play their games. They're going to push forward with whatever they can do, especially after Dee wins, like we mentioned. She's just going to go for it. She's playing at probably the fastest speed right out of the gate than most of the players there, because she knows what she's
Jenna
capable of.
Lewis.
Well,
Jenna
yeah,
came out
she
like a
did. She did.
747. I mean,
Yeah, but Dee's not too far behind her. Not to say she's
true.
playing recklessly or anything, because she wasn't, but she's building relationships, being confident, not worrying about what happens if she goes out early on the season because she kind of expected that to be the case anyway. That's the mentality right there, especially if you're coming back. If you want winners to come back on seasons in the future, you need to have Dee's mentality. Otherwise, you can't play scared after you just won, because how are we going to relate to you? How are we going to understand you? How are we going to root for you in a new way?
Yeah. While at the Blood Moon, D wins immunity and has to make a decision on whether to take out Coach or Colby. D catches Coach with foot in his mouth saying that Emily threw out her name last night. And she's like, well, then why didn't you tell me sooner? And Coach has no response to this question.
hmm
Something we'll talk about in the Coach episode, which is just going to be a fabulous
Electric.
time. It's going to
Yeah.
be great. I mean, we literally might talk for 2 hours about Coach.
hmm
But anyway, if you thought our Spark Notes were fast for Colby, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Yeah.
But, she debates on taking out Coach or Colby at the Blood Moon. And you can really see her reverence for Survivor here, I think, especially at Tribal. And for Coach and Colby and Sari, like we hear about these super fans all the time. And I think a lot of it comes out as these like for lack of a better term, like spastic jitterbug type excitement, right? And they can't wait to be there, and everything is the coolest thing ever. And they come out and they have this super infectious energy, which is all well and good, but you don't see as much reverence for the show anymore. And I think Dee really shows this reverence here, which is just a really fascinating thing to come from a player who is known as, yes, an emotional player at times, but also somebody who's a stone cold killer.
Yeah, that's the misinterpretation I think Dee has like mentioned that she thinks is the case. Like she's not really a stone cold killer. She doesn't feel like that's the case because she does get emotional on this. Yes, she can be a killer. Yes, she can make these moves, but still has a lot of warmth in her heart for those people as she's making those moves. And that is the toughest thing to do from our perspective, watching the show, from what a lot of players say, is to make the move that you know is right, that you know in your mind is right, but in your heart you might not want to make.
Yeah. Well, and she ends up making, I don't know if it's the right move, but it's a move that, I mean, again, right?
Hindsight.
If you know that Colby is going to be taken out,
Yeah.
medically evacuated if he survives the boat, then of course take Coach out and then take Colby, right?
Hmm.
But with the information they were given, this is probably the right choice. I think Siri is probably correct here.
Yeah.
And the fact that Colby held a lot more sway than Coach did, and Coach really kind of imploded himself at the merge, at Dee's vote, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Coach wins the battle, Dee wins the, I don't even know if she wins the war, but she takes out Coach. It's almost like the traders thing where, if you're a trader and you're targeting another trader and that trader starts leading the crumbs to you and you go out, but they also go out, you kind of win in the same way. It's kind of like that a little bit. Because realistically, Coach makes it two spots further than D. So I don't know. Hindsight's 2020, like you said, but we're not sure. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Do you want to talk some about Dee's vote out more specifically as well?
sure.
Yeah, so that's obviously a chaotic episode. You mentioned it's really the implosion of Coach and really just trying to lead the vote, which he does successfully. Um, what do you think? Well,
Chaotically,
yes,
sure, but successfully.
the vote gets across. um, he gets what he wants in that vote. Um, but what do you think Dee's response should have been in this episode?
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting spot for D. Because, you have a lot of the stuff at camp, and we can get into this. Jonathan instigates this fight with D, Coach, and himself. Jonathan says D isn't being honest, brings up the Charlie blind side. Jonathan kind of throws out her skeletons in the closet in the game here, which gets D fired up. And Jonathan, is talking about how this was intentional, and he says this at Final Tribal, which not the best idea to say, hey, I purposefully got you really upset. It's probably not the best thing in the world unless they're just the most unemotional game player ever, I guess. Game body,
Hmm.
thing. But there's not really a huge thing for Dee here, especially because she tells Emily that Rizzo has an idol, right? Like this is seen as a liability for Dee, breaks the trust of a friend, breaking Rizzo's trust in Dee. And at that point, once you lose the Suri Ozzy Rizzo faction, the Wizard of Oz, I mean,
It was over.
you're kind of gone.
Hmm. Yeah, it's tough because we've talked about um just decontaining our emotions a lot of the time. And here it kind of all starts to spell out. Which leads to the first time that she gets voted out. So it's like again, it goes to show how impressive 45 was because she just as easily could have done that and had the right to have those moments on that season as well. I think she has the right to say what she says in this episode. I think a lot of what she's saying is valid. Obviously, she's very smart in her gameplay, knows what she's talking about, puts up a good fight, but ultimately it's just too late. Just the social connections weren't as much there with as many people as they were on 45. Enough people saw her as a threat, which she was. She knew that, and that was it.
Well, let's talk about this argument because Dee has some words in her exit press about this argument between Jonathan. She says, "quote So what happened was me and Jonathan were having a conversation, and he asked me if I trusted Coach, and I said no, which I should have said yes, correct.
Yeah.
But at that point, I don't care. I was going home anyway. This was right before tribal, and so Jonathan goes back up to Coach and says, "D doesn't trust you," and so that was where he did a great job because obviously that got Coach riled up. So when you see me walking to the hammock, I call Jonathan, "You little S head." That's my way of banter. So basically, I go up to Coach. I'm like, "You look sad. Are you okay?" And that's when he was like, "No, you're lying. You said that you don't trust me." And I don't think they ever showed that part. End quote.
Yeah. Yeah, when she explains it, it's much different than what we saw on the show in the episode
Because
proper
this
we
is
see in
seen
the
like
beginning.
in the morning, like
Yes.
before Dee's name is even really thrown out there, and they show this as the catalyst as to why Coach and Jonathan lead this faction against Dee.
Right. And I think what they were trying to do with that, knowing Jonathan's going to go far in the game, is
Hmm.
to give more credit to Jonathan throughout the episode, which makes sense from an editing perspective, but you also have to look at the reality of the situation. And that's what we're going to talk about. We can talk about why the editing may have been made,
Yeah,
but the point of the podcast that we're doing is to talk about who these characters are and why the decisions they made, why they made those decisions in reality.
yeah. Well, and I think something that's really interesting here is, it's all perspective, right? From Dee's perspective, if you can get somebody mad enough,
Yeah.
maybe they go. You never
Hmm.
know. Like, and she got a lot of, and kind of going back to what we were saying earlier, like she got a lot of people against Coach really quickly here.
Hmm.
And, the editing really makes this seem like this is Jonathan's move, but really it's just Coach's retaliation here in a lot of ways. Um, but I think this is so interesting. D's voted out 8-4-1 here. And plays her shot in the dark, which fails. Honestly, for D, I was actually kind of expecting it to hit for some reason. D's just a player that just seems kind of naturally lucky to me. I don't know. But yeah, so D's voted out here. What are you gonna say?
Yeah, not too much else on that. I think she realizes that she's dead in the water, so she tries to swim, knowing that she's not really gonna make it to shore. But it's better than just laying back and letting yourself drown. So
Knowing what we know now, should this have been a Tiffany vote? You think?
I think they made the right move here. I think you get Dee out as soon as you can, especially once you hit the merge, because she is so dangerous as a social and under the radar threat. And I think her perception kind of would have helped her had she gotten further in this game, because they're thinking early when they before they come in the season, Dee is going to be this scary player that I'm not going to want to be around. She's going to be coming after me the whole time. And you meet her, and she's this charming, this nice, this kind, this sweet person. Um, and that could just allow her to go further and to fall under the radar once more. So, yeah, I think it's better to take those threats out as early as you can.
D is an exceptionally good narrative shifter.
Yeah.
Like she's unbelievable at taking the target off of somebody and putting it onto somebody else
Hmm.
through logic, through her charm, through whatever it is. Like she's really, really good at it. And
Yes.
almost weasels her way out of part of this. And if the other target in the split vote isn't Tiffany, who people generally like, maybe it flips the other direction. I mean, nobody really wanted to vote Tiffany here.
Yeah.
And if that changes, if the other vote is Devins or Aubrey or whoever, maybe they can get something going.
Yeah. Um, Anything else on D on season 50? I think I'm good with my thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, she votes for Aubrey to win. She's the mayor of Ponderosa,
Yeah.
for what it's worth, so fair Ponderosa, I think, for the most part,
Hmm.
to her.
Yeah, and she's ecstatic to be there first. She's ecstatic that she made the merge. She didn't really
Yeah.
expect much. She said this was better than she thought she was going to do on the show, and now she gets to vote for a winner. So I mean, I think a lot of people could have been worried that after Dee's season 45 prowess and that big win that she had that was so dominant, that she could really fall off with a bad season on 45. And she ultimately does go out at one of the first tribals that she's at, but I don't think her legacy drops in the slightest here.
I don't either. I actually think this helped her legacy to a certain extent. To do it
Especially
against
now that she's getting more opportunities.
well, and to do it with this cast, right? Like these are a lot of strong players. And
Hmm.
she's able to maneuver and navigate, right? Honestly, the fact that she's not one of the first two or three people off the season is really impressive. Granted, it helps that her team wins a lot of challenges. They have Jonathan, she's a great challenge competitor as well. I'd even say top 20-ish all time, probably for D. And that might be even a little conservative, there in terms of all time players, because she does win another individual immunity, and her team challenge rate is great.
Yeah.
But um, I think about this, and I think something about D in season 50 is just that we're reminded of why D is so great. I think so much of you can pick parts in her 45 game of like, she was operating with this majority alliance once they got the once they got it rolling, they could do whatever, right? But really in season 50 you see that even without this big alliance, right? She's able to maneuver, she's able to navigate, she's able to scratch and claw, and then eventually, you have so many people against you that you can't really do much. And that's where Dee finds herself in her exit. But realistically, without that, Dee's in an okay spot and makes it pretty far and is really influential in the season. So fair play to Dee.
Yeah. It's tough to like we're nitpicking in things that we're saying are great about Dee's game because there's
For
not
sure.
many flaws there.
Yeah, that's a
Um,
that's a good point. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's kind of it's a difficult one to talk about in a lot of ways because so much of it is positive. But that's just the reality of the character that Dee was and may continue to be on the show. So I'm ready to get into some couple closing questions if you're ready to go.
Let's do it.
All right. I'll start with the one that I usually ask here,
Let's
and
do
then you
it.
can throw any more questions that you have the rest of the way. But every episode, we talk about a single character. As you know, this one is about D, and we ask whether this character is a hero, a villain, or an anti-hero, and a bit about why. So, Tristan, as usual, you kick us off. Is D a hero, a villain, or an anti-hero?
I'd say D. This is harder than I thought, actually. I'm gonna say tentatively hero.
Okay.
I mean, if you're looking at it in a vacuum on season 45, I think she's a hero, right? If you take some people are going to be like, hey, the showman stuff was inauthentic to Austin's experience. She's a villain,
Mm-hmm.
those things happen, right? Like if you look at the relationships that happen on Survivor versus the relationships that don't happen on Survivor, right? These showmances, unless you're Franny and Matt or Boston Rob and Amber, don't usually last, right? Or I guess Joe and Sierra, but that's a
Yeah.
little
A
different.
little different.
But
There's a couple
I
other ones.
a couple, yeah, that's a fair point. But you know what I'm saying? Is like these showmances usually are not like end all be all forever things. And I
Mm-hmm.
think for anyone to have that expectation is a little unfair. With all the stuff we don't see as well and what
Yeah.
happens in the end game and everything like that. So based on her really wanting to work with her alliance and really not backstabbing people and being a pretty loyal character, I'm going to call her a hero in season 45. And I think she's definitely a hero in season 50.
Okay. I'll go opposite of you here. I'm gonna say
Hmm.
villain.
I can
A couple,
understand why. Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
a couple of times in a row we disagreed on this, which is good. I think I definitely see why you said hero. But it's like the conflicted villain, like we've talked about in the past. Like even if you know what you're doing is going to hurt your heart, you still need to do it. And she made the decisions that were right for her game, and that made her look like she was a cold, or yeah, a stone cold killer. Even though maybe that's not who she is inside, but as a Survivor player, I'm calling her a villain.
I know she does UFC, not WWE, but she could be Stone
Yeah,
Cold Steve
she
Austin.
could.
But
She could.
anyway,
Just old D
uh,
Austin. D Austin. The little 45 reference there.
it all comes
Right
back
there.
to season 45. What makes D such a dangerous player, right? And I think we've talked about this all
Yeah.
episode, but I just don't know what the tactile thing is. Like, if somebody were to stop you on the street and say, why is D a great Survivor player? Blank.
Yeah. Just to try and bring some nuance to it, it'll be similar to what I've said, but
Hmm.
it just it's like Jonathan was described as the total package in season 50. Like I think she kind of brings that in a lot of ways that she can be yeah, sorry, had to bring that into this. Um, but she does bring that in a lot of ways that she can compete in challenges. She is strategic. She's openly strategic. She's social. She's openly social, but she still is not having people vote for her until 50 ultimately when she does go. But especially in 45, she can just be herself. She's out in the open. She has alliances that people know about, but it doesn't matter because she's confident in her gameplay. She's going to move forward with her plan. She has people that she knows will move forward with her plan because she's an expert at getting people on the same page as her, making them think that her plan is also their plan, and a lot of times it is. And there's truth to it, and there's gameplay behind it. She's a master at mixing both of those in picking and choosing which times is ready to be a person, a human outside of the game, and which times it's time to be a character and a social and strategic player on a show.
You want to guess how many votes she gets against her in season 45?
She gets a good amount. I'm gonna guess like four
She gets 2 votes
the whole time.
the whole season.
I feel like when I was looking back, and I think her name gets brought up a couple of times, but I didn't
Oh,
go
it
back and
does.
check the votes. But yeah, yeah, again, even more impressive. Like I think trying. Do you know the two people that vote for her?
I have my spreadsheet. Let me check it. Yes, I am the nerd that keeps a spreadsheet every time voting history happens. One is by Sean
Yeah,
in the
when
final
he,
15,
which was like
which
a throwaway vote because
yeah,
he thought he was
so
going home.
technically she only has 1 vote against her, I guess. And then at the final 5, the vote from
Yeah,
Jake
yeah.
in the failed plan to take her out.
The beginning and the end.
If
Um,
D doesn't win season 45, you think she's brought back for 50?
I do. Yeah.
I think so too, and I think she's probably. Do you think she could win 50?
I think she definitely get farther, and I think she would be right up there to win. It
Yeah.
depends how far D ultimately went on 45. Like if
But let's say
like
she's taken out that 5 spot.
yeah. Yeah, I'm looking in comparisons like other people on the show on season 50 that were in a similar spot. Like Genevieve was a
Genevieve,
big
yeah.
threat, and she still went out early. So sometimes that can be even more threatening because they're like, oh, this person still hasn't won. They're going to be fighting even harder. So it would have been a tough road whether she won on 45 or not.
We talk a lot about. I mean, we talked last week about Colby and how mainstream of a star he was.
Yeah.
I think in terms of mainstream star power in the new era, D is by far the most mainstream star of the new era. And I don't think it's particularly close. I think D has the potential to be one of the hallmark of this generation of Survivor players of like, hey, not just they've been on the show a bunch of times, but also like we see them in other mainstream media. I'm talking even outside of reality. Like
Hmm.
we saw her in that commercial for that movie, a couple of years
Yeah, it was
ago.
yeah.
It was some movie. I guess that shows how good it is. We don't remember what the ad was. But like if she totally showed up in like a motion picture, all Parvati and Amanda Kimmel style uh Colleen Haskell style, it wouldn't totally shock me.
Yeah, I think it was a Quiet Place day one, by the way. I think that's what
There it
first.
is. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. 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 Um,
But what makes her worthy of that? I think I agree with you. I think that she will be and that she is deserving of all that. What to you makes her worthy of having that position?
I think she's warm. She's fun. She's got good energy. She's good on camera. She's somebody who says it like it is. And I think all those things kind of combine, right? For somebody you want to have on TV, you know she's going to say things that are good about the company, and to a certain extent, if you're looking from like a spokesperson perspective.
Yeah.
Um, Most of it's good PR with her.
Yeah.
Um, and even some of the not so good things are kind of swept under the rug and nobody really talks about them anymore. Which there's been one or two, but yeah, hey,
Mhm.
I mean, we
Certainly
all
one.
we all have those, right?
Yeah.
To a certain extent, and maybe not that specific. I hope not, but
We don't all have that.
but
Good one.
anyway, like, it, I think just D is always out and available in people's attention and minds. I think that's also the big thing. Like, if she went to something and or if she like one day was like, I'm not gonna post on social media, I'm not gonna do whatever, I'd probably notice.
Hmm.
Just she's like a regular part of my Instagram feed, some post of her popping up, or I hear about her on Twitter in some show or something like that. Like
Yeah.
it's just like she's one of those people in the Survivor community that is just constantly there or being talked about or doing something, right? Like if she does like an Amanda Kimmel seclusion thing, I'd be like, what happened? It'd be genuinely kind of shocking.
Wherever she goes, whatever she does, she's going to bring the
Mm,
energy.
yeah.
Whatever energy it may be, she has that specific energy to her that is moving her further and deservingly so. So I'm good on talking about Dee. I
Yeah, I
think,
am too.
yeah, we've really covered both of her seasons well, and I think there could be more of her in the
Yeah.
future.
Oh, for sure. And I think that and we talked about this with Kyle, we talked about this in the Savannah episode. I said at the time I think Kyle might be the most likely two-time winner of the new era in terms of somebody who could come back. If you're talking about maybe like the person who in like a vacuum, if you had all the players again do it, all the winners like play another game of Survivor and nobody knew that anyone had won the game before, I'd probably pick D, honestly, in there because she is, to use Stephanie's terms, I guess, the total package, right? She's great in challenges. She has a great social game. She's great physically. She's great at the strategic part of the game. I mean, what more can you want? I mean, her and Kyle, I think it'd be a pretty good fight to the end on who would win that.
Yeah. Yeah, just congrats to Dee and all that she's doing. I think
Yeah.
it's great, and she's a great poster name of the new era that we'll know moving forward.
Well, we're happy you took the time to listen to the podcast today, talking about Dee Valladares, currently now on Big Brother as a house guest on season 28, also season 45 and season 50. Tyler, it's been a pleasure. We will be back with Chrissy on Friday talking about one of the interesting players of season 50. There's a lot there. We don't see much of it, but there's a lot there. And we hope that you tune in for that. Tyler, anything before we go?
I'm all good.
All right. Well, we will see you all on Friday. Bye.